Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Shay, and this is Shay with the Hobbies. You are watching episode 2 of Writerly Conversations, but the first episode of year 2021. I'm here with my lovely co-host,
Britt Writerly.
And today we are just going to be talking about what else we'll be talking about in January of a new year, right? Goals, what we got planned, what our thoughts are, all that good jazz. So I'm going to let Britt introduce herself, and then we will get started, y'all.
Hello, Shay with the Hobby subscribers. I'm Britt Writerly. My channel is Britt Writerly. I am a book and author tuber. I talk about the intersection of literature and culture. I share some of my own writings. It depends on what season of writing I'm in, what I'm sharing. Sometimes it's a serial, sometimes it's a poem, but come on over, check out some videos. If you like what you see, hit that big red button and we can be internet friends.
Yay! Y'all, I'll check out her channel. Like, obviously we're friends now because I checked out her channel. So there's that. Okay, so 2020 was a crazy year, right? Like, it was definitely not at all like fast forward 365 or 366 days, right? We were sitting in our houses in January 2020, like, this is gonna be the year.
Hey.
Blah, blah. So how are you feeling going into this 2021?
I'm feeling fine, actually. Like I you know this, I uploaded my second poetic presence on my channel, which is my original content right now. I'm writing poetry, was a poem called Dear 2020 and Apologetics after Rudy Francisco. So I was talking to 2020 and launching a defense of 2020 that I think this year is being wrongfully accused of being like the worst ever. And 2020 is not my best year, but it's not my worst. And so like in going into 2021, I'm not really feeling any sort of like, finally that year is over. Like, I'm like, okay, it's a new year, new things will happen. But by and large, I think that none of the things that happened in 2020 happened without a lot of help from us. COVID was as bad as it was because of poor leadership and people refusing to follow public health guidelines. Trump has been in office for 4 years, so his shenanigans that popped off in 2020 did not pop off in 2020. It didn't even get worse. Like it is what it was, and it exacerbated other things. Police brutality, like that is also nothing new. And so 2020 did not smack of like worst year ever, because the things that happened in 2020 have all happened before, and sometimes even at the same time before. So yeah, going into 2021, I'm just like, I hope y'all don't be over here putting all this pressure on this year when the things that happened in 2020 could happen in 2021, because those people and those things and those elements are still operative. So I'm just watching right now. All of that to say, she's just watching.
Right, that's exactly what I was saying. So all of that to say, you're just watching cautiously. I get it. So I feel similar. Like I feel differently in the fact that everything that happened last year had been happening, except for the fact that you were like forced to stay in your home. Like, I feel like that kind of compiled everything for me, because not being able to go out and be with my Black family so that I could like get away from everything that had been bothering me, and getting to have that family time was not something that I could do in 2020 like previous years. Especially with like going to visit grandparents and stuff like that. Like, that's something that I'm like really big on doing that I couldn't do at all last year because of like what was going on. But I definitely agree. 2020 was not my worst year at all. It was actually a really, really good year. And I had to check myself for feeling like I couldn't say that, because I know how bad of a year it has been for some people. It's not like the year wasn't hard, but the good definitely outweighed the bad for me. And that's even to say like there were deaths and things like that, but like everything definitely was still better. So I completely agree with you on the it not being that worst of a year. And I'm also going into 2021 cautiously because we are still like in a very much precarious situation with this virus. Like there's new strains, we don't know we really don't know. And so I am excited personally because I all of my goals center around the knowledge of there's potential to have to be stuck in the house for another year.
Yep.
So I don't have as many like I plan to go here and get to travel here, and I don't have as many of those goals this year as I did last year to help combat that like poor mental health that could come around because you make all these plans already knowing how rocky this situation is. Like that's a life tip for you guys right there. Like you already know this year is starting off coming off of last year. Don't put yourself in a position to make a whole bunch of grandiose goals knowing that it's still such a rocky situation because you
Right.
have to deal with looking at those goals not being accomplished. And you personally know what that does for your mental health. So definitely just take caution and care when doing that. Okay, so I did want to talk about like the switching in from 2020 into 2021. So do you have like a theme or a word or like something that like is your like concept for the year? Are you like one of those type of people?
Um, no, not necessarily. I mean, not any sort of like succinct and pithy phrase that I'm like, this is the year of boom. No, but I do feel like in a lot of ways I'm at the sort of edge of something where like spiritually I think I'm like at a point where I'm either gonna plateau and go down, or I'm gonna like take that leap and reach a new level of faith. I think as far as like my writing goes, and so much as I want to make it a career, I'm at a point with my manuscripts where it's like you are trying to query starting in spring, you might reach a totally new and exciting level of your writing career by December of next year, by this time next year. So I think this is like a year for me where I'm expecting things to happen that will take me in new directions or allow me to like walk more solidly in directions that I had been plotting out in 2020 and that I'm hope to get to walk in 2021.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. What about
I
you?
think I am one of those people like I like like have like a theme for the year or like a theme for like each month or the quarter just because like I like to have like something at the forefront of my mind like going into things like just kind of an aim. And so I did Kwanzaa-thon for the last week, and the playlist will be in the description box below. But I was really, really glad that I did because I felt like so much conviction, so much enlightenment, so much education, so much like I got so much out of those 7 days that it helped me to have a more concise plan going into 2021. And so like my word for 2021 is consistency. Whatever it is that I do, I want to be consistent in it. Like that has been something that I've struggled with. And to go in with that, the like focus for the first quarter is discipline. Like consistency does require discipline. And so that is like that's me like, okay, let me figure out how I can put these things that I want to happen into action. And so that was like, well, let me ask Britt, like, does she have like a theme for the year or something that she's going for, like an overall theme? Okay, so I guess we'll start with writing because like that's our thing, right? So writing goals, what do you have that you're willing to share? Of course, like no pressure.
Yes. Well, for writing goals, I mean, I have not a lot of, I now own 2 craft books. That is a relatively new phenomenon for me still. Because I was like, oh no, I know how to write, it's fine. But then I finished the manuscript and there were things that I did really well, and there were other things where it was like, this isn't connecting, and maybe you need some support with that. And so like I've had my difficult like get over yourself season of like, you don't know everything. Writing is a craft. You need to learn. And so wait, what did you ask me before I get off topic? That's gonna happen.
Writing goals.
Writing goals. Yes. Okay.
I had to remember it too. You're fine.
So in this, I mean, I like how you're breaking it up into quarters. I think in my head I am too. I just didn't understand it that way, but I definitely like the first quarter is intensive writing and planning. And hi, I'm Britt, and I'm in Anti-Planners Anonymous. That's when everyone says, hi, Britt. Hi, thank you for accepting me into your humble home.
I knew. Why did you feel the need to?
For you and the people.
Okay, I was about to say, okay, all right, I'll give you that, because I was just about to say, I know you don't think I don't know the.
No, we're not alone here. They're peoples. They're
like, yes, I know.
For the internet peeps. By now, whom have already said hi, Britt, I'm assuming they had that 15 seconds to say that. So I'm assuming that you said that. Thank you for the welcome. I'm just gonna be transparent. I don't like planning. And Cache and I have had conversations about planning, and she has watched my face fall into oblivion and sadness and depression when we have to talk about like planning for my writing project. So she can attest that I don't like planning. I put world building under planning. So this is the like, I'm having to do a lot of that in this first quarter, and I don't like it, but I understand it's important, so I really want to do it well. So one of my writing goals, again, all that to say, I talk a lot. Can y'all tell that I talk a lot? My first writing goal is to get into a rhythm and a schedule of planning. So like I'm reading this book on writing and world building. I'm really excited about this book, but I still find myself like not reading it for days, when it's like, you need to actually get through this book so you can like start implementing some of these things, because you should be writing consistently. But if you're not like getting the principles of world building, what you should be doing right now, then like, do you see how you're stopping yourself from being productive? Okay, back to reading. So I'm trying to build good habits of reading craft books and writing, so that the first draft is not as weak as it would have been in 2020 when I was refusing to read craft books. So a part of myself is still refusing to read them, even though I now own them. So that is the first and biggest writing goal of this quarter, is to read and write and be ready by in the next couple of months to like send to CPs full manuscripts of at least one of the 2 projects that I'm working on, so that I'm ready to query by the middle of the year.
Okay. Is that the only one, like the one that you want to talk about, or are there others?
Yeah, that's the major one, the world building, so I can be prepared to like send strong manuscripts to my CPs and betas, so I'm sure we'll appreciate not reading crap part 2.
As a CP, it's not crap, so whatever. Ray Bradbury gave a talk in which he encouraged writers who want to get traditionally published and get their work out there to write one short story a week for a year, and to read one short story, one poem, and one essay a night for 1,000 nights. Now, there's an asterisk on that second part for me, because I'm not going to be doing that, but I will be doing one short story, one poem, and one essay a week. So all of these things, one a week. And so I have started that with the start of Short Story Saturday. And one way that I'm like majorly changing my goals for writing in 2021 versus 2020 versus the 2 zeros, whatever. I am focusing on the time I spend writing and like accounting for that. So I want to be able to be like, at the end of the month, this is how much time I spent writing, and this is what I was able to accomplish. So like, I spent 17 hours writing. I finished 4 short stories and 7 chapters of a book in this month. Like, that's what I want to see. Because I wrote over 420,000 words last year. And I finished quite a bit of things, but I do feel like I could have finished way more than I did had I been more intentional with my time and also consistent with my writing time. I am my major goal is to finish 2 first drafts. So to finish the first draft of Jesus Never Went to College that I started last year, and then to finish the first draft of my Scooby-Doo meets a different world story that I want to write. And so I have started working towards that second story with the short stories, because the short stories that I've started writing at this point like involve in the time frame of that overarching book. So it's like different short stories that the reader may never see, but it helps me to get to know the characters and to create the campus and that type of stuff. And then the last like major writer goal I have goes back to consistency, and it has to do with my blogging and getting back into that and being super duper consistent on that. Because I want to say like I was doing really really well for a while, and then I fell off. And it goes in cycles, and I don't want it to go in cycles in 2021. Like I want to be consistent all year round. Like for me, I think that's just what I want to prove to myself, that I can stick to a schedule and consistently do things for the course of a year, and to see what happens when I give myself that year. I'm of the belief that anything can happen if you focus on something, like give it your full attention for like an express amount of time. And so that's what my goal is for this. Okay, so writing wise, we both are like do bookish booktube content. So book wise, what are your goals?
I don't really. I do. I almost lied. I was like, I don't really have anything. For my channel at least, I was playing with the idea. Okay. I was playing with the idea of putting more of my like not school content, but books that I would have thought that I only read for school, and having a sort of series on my channel about called for instance like the Black Studies Library, where once a month I talk about a book and the principle of that book that I hear talked about a lot, but like ground it in a discourse. So for instance, the politics of respectability, people talk about respectability all the time. It's getting a bit irksome because I like citationality, and no one ever cites Evelyn Brooke Higginbotham's For Politics of Respectability, even though she coined the term in 1993, when she wrote Righteous Discontent, talking about Black Baptist women from 1880 to 1920, talking about the Black church movement or the Baptist church movement, like, and those women and their role in it. That is when she coined that term. We never talk about the context of it being created. We only ever use it as a term of critique. And even though she does talk about how like some pitfalls of it, it existed for a reason and it served a purpose. And to some extent it was successful, and we owe a certain amount of like regard to it for serving its purpose and getting us to where we are now. And I never see any of that due given to that that strategy that these women used, or to Professor Higginbotham for giving us that language. And so, for instance, I would do a review of that book and talk about the ways that people talk about respectability now and how those things are connected, or how they have somehow become disengaged. And so that's something that I want to do in 2021, is to not ground conversations, because I'm not taking responsibility for these conversations that are happening now, but to offer a discourse for some of the things that we see circulating, for some terms that we see circulating that did not pop off on Twitter, and are not new. So that's one reading goal, and that's really the only like defined reading goal I have, and it's barely even a reading goal because I've read these books before, and I may or may not do a reread. I took notes on them, so I don't really need to reread them. But as far as like bookish content, that's a goal. I don't really have any other like major ones as far as like reading more Black, because I already read a lot of Black books. So yeah, that's really the only one I have. Otherwise, I'm a mood reader, so it doesn't really help me to say I'm gonna do more of X, X, and X, because I won't if the time comes to do that. And I'm like, I need a romance cleanse. If I need a romance cleanse, that's it. Like Cachet knows I will go off onto a Theodore Taylor binge, even though there's nothing over there but trauma and Black women with white men, which like that's a different discussion, but like there's nothing over there but trauma and like the end of my sleep for the next month. But that's what I need to cleanse my palate if I'm reading too much high fantasy. So like I'm a mood reader. It doesn't really make any sense for me to have any defined reading goals.
Yeah. For me, mine is not to necessarily read more Black books, because for me it is majority of what I read, but to read. Really? No, she was on his blanket again. Like that's what that was. She was on his blanket, and that's why he was hollering. Like he want.
I'm so sorry.
He's so silly. Okay. Is to not read more Black books, but read more diversely among Black books. So to read more fantasy, to read more science fiction, to read more like in the different genres. Because like, and I did this year, like this past year, I did a lot. Like I read all but one of Elizabeth Acevedo's books, all but two N.K. Jemisin's books. I read both of Tomi Adeyemi's books. I read like a lot of people that outside of N.K. Jemisin, a lot of people I hadn't read before the year has started and everything. So I was definitely glad for that. I'm definitely going to link the booktube channels that kind of helped elevate my Black reading list. Shout out to Jordan for sure, because Left on Red was I was like binging her content at the beginning of the year, and still have on my refrigerator the list of Black authors she suggested that I'm still going through. Hi, sir. Hello. Yeah, you're on camera now. Is this the thing that you're
Titan.
is that the thing that you're choosing to do, sir? Okay. Anyways, there's y'all's Titan footage for today. Okay, so with that, what are your goals with your channel for the year?
Yeah, I kind of just like both those questions into one as far as like my reading goals and my channel goals, because I don't have any reading goals because I'm a mood reader. So for the channel, it's just to start that new series of the Black Studies Library, and to also to continue, or yeah, to add more to the other series that I started. I started a lot of, well, several little mini series last year. I only have like one installment in them, unlike Facts and Factors. That mini series has like, I'm up to like what, episode 8 or 9 this month. So that's consistent. That's because I recorded those videos at the same time, where I just like upload them very easily. But the other ones, like the I Fangirl or the quote abuse, like those are sort of like as things come to me. And I think one of the things for my channel that I want to just like embrace is one, I'm in graduate school. I'm in a Black Studies program. My specialty, or my area is in Black women's literary fiction. So I read a fair amount of that when I'm being good. I then escape into fiction. But so that's a lot of what I think about and what I think through, but I don't really have that many videos on my channel talking about them. Like the only one that I have is me fangirling over the best first sentence ever written, and that was about The Color Purple. which like I stand by it to this day, no questions. But like I don't have a lot of other content about Black women's literary fiction. And so I'm thinking through how or if I want more. And part of that has to do with just like making the channel that I want to make and making the content that I want to make, and not worrying about if it's like not gonna come up in the YouTube algorithms with all the other videos like that. So like I don't do hauls. I don't do hauls or TBRs or wrap ups or anything. And if I did, those videos would come up like and suggested with all the other TBRs and whatever's. But I don't want to do them. Because my reading is not as planned as all that. But that's okay. Like I want my channel to grow as it should when I'm making the content that I want to make, not grow as I've tried to like calculate it because I have the right videos. And so if I want to talk more about Black women's literary fiction, even if these books were written 30 years ago, then I want to feel confident and comfortable enough to do that. If I want to talk about a bunch of Black studies critical theory, I want to do that if I want to do that. And so it's more just like doing whatever it is that I say I want to do and making this channel what I want to make. And if I, get to 500 subscribers by the end of the year, like fantastic. And if I'm still sitting at 250, but it's the channel that I want, fantastic. So that's really more what I'm thinking of is what content do you want to create? So that, and then trying to do more reviews. So I have a NetGalley account. Of course, literally 2 weeks after I got an account, they got hacked, which I was like, I hate the internet. I really do. But I want to try to do more like arcs and real like reviews and book talks and whatever. So that's a goal. But there I go talking a lot again. It's a pot of things that I want to do, and we'll see what gets pulled out at different times throughout the year.
I'm with you on focusing on the content and not the subscribers, because like that was always like a thing like at the like back of my mind, not ever something like at the forefront, because again, Black content creator, knowing that the content creation category I was getting in was already a very niche market anyways. So like there aren't like there are and I'm not an author tuber anymore, but in AuthorTube there are a few people that are monetized or have like over 1,000 subscribers, but it's not like a drastic amount like BeautyTube or any of the other things. So like right. I already knew I was getting into like that area, so that was never a thought for me. The biggest thing I think for me is just making sure that I am giving equal time to the other things, like because writing has become like my full-time focus, it has gotten a lot more attention, but it's not in the least bit the majority of what I do, right? Like there's so many other things that I do, and that hence the creation of CreatorTube. And so I just want to be, again, back to the theme for the year, more consistent with what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. And I really want my channel to just focus on my journey more than anything else. And so my journey means that I'm not necessarily doing a TBR every month, because maybe I'm like studying this book as I'm reading it and studying the way the dialogue goes. Like, so there are a lot of different things that come with that. And so I think that's my overall goal for my channel, is just that at the end of the year, I want to look back and feel like I was consistent in the displaying of the content that I create. Because like one thing I know I was consistent in this past year was I consistently streamed. Like occasionally like I would miss because I wasn't feeling well or something, but for the most part, like I streamed every week and got like that writing in, and that alone was a great motivator. And I definitely know that like I want YouTube to always be a motivation, not a chore. I feel like at the point that it becomes a chore, I know that I'm gonna need to like back away and not do it, because that's not at all what I got into it for. Okay, so we talked about like reading and writing and YouTube and whatnot. What about your personal? Like, what do you have for your life, like as a Black woman, as a graduate student, as a Christian, as like, what are your goals like as a person for this year?
As a person, my spiritual goals are like eclipse everything as far as like the professional and the whatever, even the writerly, like all of that is subject to my spiritual health. And I just want to study more. Like I study pretty much every day for like 30 minutes, but it's I don't like the kind of 30 minutes that it is. It's the kind of 30 minutes where I'm like, and go. And then I'm like, let me like busy myself with Bible or Bible adjacent things for 30 minutes. It doesn't feel like I'm really engaging or meditating or pushing myself or anything. And so I want to have a better 30 minutes of study this year, to the point where like it's not even 30 minutes. I sit down and I just get lost in the wonder and the majesty of God and his word, and pushing against like traditions that aren't really reflected in scripture and how I live my life and that sort of thing. So I definitely, just for that's huge. And then like, this is not necessarily a year where like in graduate school something huge is going to happen. I'm going, and it's going to be like the second semester of my fourth year, the first semester of my fifth year in the fall. And so I'll have to start thinking about like the market, and that goes into like professional goals. But I don't know, I'm not really pressed about it. I never really am. I want to teach. Like, I want to teach Black women's literary fiction, and I don't care if I do that in a college classroom or in an 8th grade English classroom. I used to like definitely want to be like Dr. 3 in a small liberal arts college, and I still now want to be in a small liberal arts college, but now it's just like I want to be in a small liberal arts college and nowhere else, because I understand now, after 4 years of being in graduate school, what being in the academy means, and what being in the academy means as a Black woman, and I'm not into it. So I'm easing into having to like pay more attention to the market, and COVID did a number on the academic market, because it's already so specialized. When you're talking about people with doctoral or master's degrees who are applying, like those are not like, it's not a huge amount of jobs anyway. And then a lot of universities went into hiring freezes after COVID. So it's just like, the goal is to stay calm. The goal is to stay calm, and to think about like marketing myself in a variety of different ways, which I already am like working on. But like I said, none of those things are necessarily gonna like come due in 2021. So it's just like, okay, keep calm, plan on, finish your dissertation, or like get your first draft done, that sort of thing. So I'm just like trying, as far as the graduate school stuff, I'm like, don't, just stay according to plan, and nothing is popping off this year, so don't make nothing pop off this year.
I like it. It's like cool, calm, and collected. Like,
Yes, don't start none, won't be none.
I like it. I like it. Let's see. For me, my personal goals definitely have to do with like being more self-reliant and self-sufficient, especially with like moving, because I'm going to be moving out of the college town that I live in and back into a bigger city. And so if you've been watching my channel for a while, you know, like I'm on disability, like I have epilepsy. And so moving from this smaller town that is like definitely like super easy within my budget, like living where I live is like cheap, but it's not like I'm not like in a dangerous neighborhood or something like that. Like, so having to like, what's in my price range, but what also am I gonna have to sit Titan and Cleo on somebody? Like, how that's gonna have to work? Like, there's all of that. So it's juggling that, but the main thing, I guess, for dealing with that I'm focusing on is just taking my therapy and mental health like super duper serious. Like going through whatever it is that I need to be going through, like going through my PTSD workbook and all the other stuff that it is, like taking care to make sure that I put my mental health at the forefront of what's going on in my life. I think that so many times last year I can think back to where I just kind of like wallowed in depression for a little while, or I wallowed in like a negative headspace because of like things that were going on. And I don't want to allow other people or situations to have that power in 2021. Like that's something that I definitely want to make sure that I'm like taking back and taking more control of. I'm also with you on the like spiritual side, because I definitely and I talked about this a little bit in the other videos, but I definitely just, like I said, I felt really convicted during Kwanzaa-thon, and it was like, okay, come the new year, these are the steps that I need to be taking. These are like, this is the time I need to be given towards meditation and prayer, and these are the times I need to be given towards, investing in fellowship with other people, like those type of things. Because I love that in Kwanzaa-thon, like everything's centered around spirituality and community. Like it's centered around those two things constantly. And I realized that those things are what made 2020 a better year for me. And so why not continue that trend in 2021, of course. So okay, so we talked about our goals. Is there anything else that you want to talk about going into this first month?
Yeah, I think just general, like, what are your overall writing goals? Like, and not writing goals is like, I want to do, like, as a writer, what is your purpose? What is your purpose as a writer? Like, what do you see your purpose to be? And how did you perceive that purpose? Like, how did it come to you?
So for me, I've always felt like this, and I've said it all the time. Like, my only wish with my words is to change the world for somebody. Um, and for me, that like it's for somebody because words hit different for everybody, right? Like for me, a book that changed my world was Mildred D. Taylor's Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. Like it changed my world, and I will ever be forever grateful for that. Another book that changed my world was This Present Darkness by Frank Peretti. Completely changed my world and my thought on the spiritual world versus the real world, or the world that we live in rather. um like so that has been my goal since I was a child. Like ever since I started writing, like I wanted to make other people feel something like books had made me feel something. And so that's always been my like overarching goal or purpose when I write.
For me, I've always wanted to be a writer, and I think I've always wanted to be a writer before I saw an issue with the kind of books that I was reading. I just always wanted to be a writer. I was reading since I was a kid. My dad's an English teacher. That probably has no small amount to do with it. But when I really started like plotting and scheming on not just like wanting to be a writer in general, but what I wanted to write, I was in high school. And then when I was just starting to notice that I was having to like redact in my head like how much I had in common with these characters, because I was like, oh, like I'm just like them, except I'm not white and I don't talk to my parents. Like we've had bits of this conversation about like seeing yourself in the writing. And it was about when I was 16 that I got tired of doing that. I didn't stop reading. I just started looking actively for more Black books, and I did not find them. I didn't really know how to look for books. And so it was about then that I was like, okay, I want to be a writer. And that for me, that means I want to produce more books that have Black characters so that my children don't have to imagine that they're Hermione but Black. Like, I just want them to be able to imagine a girl with a Black name who has parents that behave like hers and that has fears like she does and has to navigate a world like she does, even if it's fantasy. And so that is what I want. As I've grown, I've been like, oh yeah, like, yes, fantasy and romance and science fiction and speculative fiction and. But for me, it's definitely being a mirror to people so that it's not always some imaginative gymnastics of how we see ourselves in books that don't have us there.
I like that. I like that. So like, what's the word I wanted to use? You said it, and you said something, and I was like, so people can be seen in your work.
Yes, people can see themselves in their work. Yeah.
Yeah.
In my work, I mean, yes.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Yes. That's the goal. So yeah, that's the only question I had. But other than that, you've asked all the good and obligatory New Year questions.
Right. Like, I was like, is there, what else do we ask? Like, we're talking about like goals and if you could give our fellow subscribers watching a piece of advice going into a new year, what would it be?
I would say, don't think of it as a new year. Think of it as a new season, because we're all in the practice of making New Year's resolutions that peter out sometime around February or March because the year has lost its newness. But seasons are not New Year's. Seasons are shifts in paradigms and in realities. Seasons have different rules, have different structures, have different logics that distinguish it from what was before. And that, for me, helps me to think of what I am moving towards. Nothing has to happen in a new year. Seasons come for a reason. And so that might, I think, be a better way to purpose yourself in this new year, is to think about what season are you in. And that season may not last you all year. We talked about the quarters, but what season are you entering? What is the purpose of this season? And how will you know when that season has fulfilled its purpose?
I like it. Okay, now. Okay, so if I were to give advice, I would say do not let fear and doubt hinder you in this new year. Fear and doubt are like the biggest, like to me, fear and doubt are like the worst things ever, right? Like, fear and doubt keep you from having faith. Fear and doubt keep you from being creative. Fear and doubt keep you from leaving your mark on the world. And so they are so dangerous to me. And so if I were to give anybody advice, it's that when you step into a new year, or as Britt was saying, a new season, fear and doubt are going to exist because of the newness that it is. You have to do whatever it is in your power to overcome that. That's not to say that it's easy. That's not to say that it gets easier as time goes on. It is to say that it is a necessary thing that you need to do to be the person you're meant to be. It is necessary to fulfill your purpose, because not fulfilling your purpose relies on fear and doubt. Mm-hmm. So that would be my thing. If I could give anybody any advice going into the new year, that would be that. Okay, so last question of the night. What was the biggest lesson 2020 taught you?
Honestly, I mean, I don't even feel like we have enough hindsight to say that yet. But if I'm thinking of just like a visceral, what did 2020 teach me, a knee-jerk reaction, it would have to be that, I mean, the number one thing is that God got me. But God got me addendum is that the things that happen, whether they're amazing things or whether they are terrible things, it's necessary to cultivate the skill of foresight, because I had a lot of moments in 2020 that were like deep, well, not a lot, I had marked in my mind moments that were like some very, very deep lows and some very, very high moments of anticipation. And none of those moments played out the way that I thought they were going to. And especially the lows, they really like took me out for a bit. And the highs, when they didn't go how I wanted them to go, also caused me to stumble, because I didn't have the foresight to think about where is this taking me in God's plan for me, number one. And number two, trusting that even through the lows and even when the highs don't go how I planned, God knows the plan that he has for my life to bring me a good and expected end. And so thinking about it through that, like seeing it in a spiritual lens, helped me to move through some of those more difficult moments. And in 2021, now I recognize that I have a lot of plans that could really, like I said earlier, put me on the path I've been planning for. But because of 2020, when I thought I was already gonna be walking in those paths, I understand that I could be walking down those roads by the end of the year, or I could be in a better prepared place to plan with more knowledge. And so I'm thinking just of accepting what comes with trusting God. If I'm living my life as he has called me to, then I don't have to worry.
Okay. Okay. I think the biggest lesson 2020 taught me is that just because the rest of the world is in chaos doesn't mean I have to be. Just because the rest of the world is doing bad doesn't mean that I have to be. I think the biggest lesson was like, I don't have to be a product of my environment. Like, I feel like there were two different types of people in 2020. It was people who saw the chaos that was 2020 and still did something and made something with the time that they had. And then there were people who, so maybe three different people. There are people that existed that didn't really necessarily do anything, but just kept like, I'm just going. I'm like here. And then there were people that were in despair and constantly focusing on the negative and constantly talking about the negative. And I realized that rewind a few years, I would have been that latter. Like that would have been the person that I was, because I wasn't strong in who I was in my mindset. I wasn't concrete into my foundational feelings of like what I believed and what I was going to do and things like that. And so I think that like 2020 just like reminded me that like, yo, you don't have to be like the rest of the world. Like you don't have to be like all of this that is going on. And like I was saying at the beginning of the conversation, like I felt really sad because I felt like I couldn't say that I had a good year. And it was like, no, I had a good year. And I had a good year because I changed my mindset about what the year could be. Legitimately, I saw a picture on like Instagram or Facebook or something in like March, April, and it was like, you've always asked God for the time to do the things you want to do, and now you got it. And like, hence all the work that I put in 2020, because it was like, I do have all the time.
Yep.
I do. So yeah, so
And you know what? Like that actually reminded me, if I could say really quick before we close.
Oh yeah, no, you're fine.
That reminded me of a sermon that I was listening to, and I forget what the because one of my sisters sent it to me, so I don't even remember what church it was, but I think it was like Mount Pleasant Church of Christ, something like that. But the preacher was giving a message on sowing and stewardship and sowing and blessings, and he was I think it's like the secret in the seed, or the seed has a blessing or whatever, but essentially it was saying we talk about receiving blessings, and often we don't make the most out of the blessings that we receive. And again, cultivating foresight, we don't think about the fullness of the potential that that blessing has. And he gave an example of like eating an apple seed. And he was like, you say you're hungry, you receive an apple, you eat the apple and you throw the core away, instead of taking the apple seeds and planting you an apple tree in the backyard so you don't have to ask for apples no more. And he used that to say, sometimes God gives us blessings and we only use those blessings with the thought of immediacy and like what I want right now, rather than really cultivating that, using that, planting that, multiplying that into something that can sustain us for seasons to come. And I think that goes exactly to what you're saying. Like, we've asked for the time and then we got it. Yes, we had it for 2020, but when the world opens back up again, and when COVID is behind us, whenever that time comes, how will we still be feasting off of the blessing that was 2020? I think that's important as well. And that takes planning right now to say, what did that time give me? Okay, what am I going to use that for now? And how can I then extend those blessings into the future, so I don't have to ask for an apple in 5 months, because he gave me what I need for the tree 5 months ago. I should be eating another apple at this point.
I completely agree, because honestly, that's legitimately what I did when I sat down to work out my goals. It was like, okay, this is what I did with the time I got in 2020. I still have some time in 2021. How can I maximize that even more? Like, I know that I could do this in this amount of time, and this is when I was winging it and didn't have a plan. So imagine what happens if I actually sit down and count up the cost and do all this and make a plan. So I completely agree with that. Also, I think that is a fantastic note to end on, because I feel like it gives y'all something to think about, like going forward as you're watching this. Like, what did you do in 2020? How can you compound that in 2021? What does that take? So I challenge you, like, as you watch this video for episode 2 of Writerly Conversations, to think about what you could do in 2021 to get you to whatever your end goal is, whatever that is. And we wish you all the best and all the luck with that. Next month, we will be back on Britt's channel. We will be talking about Black love and what that looks like in our eyes. So that's going to be an intense conversation.
Yes, it is. Don't bring your hurt feelings to my comments.
Yeah, it's Black History Month. Then we talk about Black love and Valentine's Day. Like, who? Ooh, that's gonna be. I'm running.
Don't bring your hurt feelings to my comments. Don't do that.
All right, y'all. Well, thank you so much for watching this video. We will see y'all next time. Bye.